Greetings nerdlings and welcome to AmalgamNation presents World of Loreccraft. This one's a bit different because I've run out of well-known characters, at least personally, that I can do vids about. I can't think of anyone to do a vid about, so I'm starting a new series. But at the same time as that happening, I've run out of legendary weapons as well. Last week was the last of the artifact weapons on Friday. That was the last artifact weapon to do a vid about. There was none left. So I'm coming up with two new series. One of them will be called Factioncraft, and the other one will be called Citycraft. Factioncraft, obviously I'll do the lore of one of the factions, and I don't just mean Horde versus Alliance. I mean things like the Silver Hand, the Argent Dawn, the Argent Crusade, and loads of others that aren't coming to mind at the moment. But there's loads and loads of factions. If you play WoW, you know how many factions there are. There's lots of cities. There's Dalaran, there's Stormwind, there's Ironforge, there's Nomergon, or Nomerigan, as we used to call it. There's Darnassus, To be honest, I'm crap with the names of the cities. I have a list in front of me. It's only a small list, but there's a list of capital cities in front of me, and I'm going to do all of them. And there's two versions of Dalaran, and I'll do both of them. There's Shattrath City, Orgrimmar, Thunderbluff, the Undercity, and so on. Like, every single one of them will be done. So, welcome to Citycraft. Today is the first Citycraft vid, and we're going to start off with Stormwind, since I mainly play as Alliance. Next week I'll do Orgrimmar, because I also play as the Horde a little bit. Stormwind City, also known as New Stormwind City, or simply Stormwind, is located north of Elwyn Forest on the Eastern Kingdom's northwest coast, and is the capital city of the kingdom known as Stormwind, and the largest human city of Azeroth. However, the city-state also controls or influences other territories, which include Elwyn Forest, Northshire Valley, the Red Ridge Mountains, Westfall, and Duskwood. The city is named for the occasional sudden squalls created by a ley line pattern in the mountains around the glorious city, and is one of the last great human cities. The city itself has been rebuilt at least once, and is a marvel of human design and engineering. Its guards keep the peace within the city's walls. Stormwind firmly backs the Alliance, and its knights, priests, paladins and mages served in the 3 wars against the Horde. Primarily a human settlement, a fair number of high elves, Ironforged dwarves, and even a few night elves and gnomes dwell here as well. Stormwind City is the home of the Academy of Arcane Sciences, the only remaining school of wizardry in the East, and the Cathedral of Light, the philosophical capital for those who follow the Holy Light. These edifices draw healers, priests, paladins, and mages to the city, all of whom bolster Stormwind's military. King Varian Wrynn ruled from Stormwind Keep. Rumour has it that Wrynn employed a secret society, the Stormwind Assassins, who were spies and saboteurs wielding royal carte blanche. Unaffected by the ravages of the Scourge in the north, Stormwind still faces its own threats, both from without and within. During the First War with the Horde, it was the humans' main base of operations, and the last city to fall to the Yorkish Horde's offensive during the First War. Anduin Lothar took what was left of the people and led their exodus to Lordaeron. The city was reconstructed and named New Stormwind, rebuilt on the same location as original Stormwind City. It is not common to call the city New Stormwind by the time of World of Warcraft, but usually simply Stormwind City or Stormwind. People and culture. Stormwind is the jewel of the Alliance in Azeroth, the grandest human city left. It has weathered 3 wars, ransacking by the orcs and invasions by the Alliance to take it back. Although mostly a human city, Stormwind does house dwarves, high elves, night elves, worgen, pandaren, and other Alliance races. It opens its gates to all Alliance members to participate in trade within the city limits. Most of the city's coffers are filled with the taxes taken from merchants in the busy market. Every night at sunset, the Cathedral of Light rings a solitary bell whose sweet pitch reaches the entire city. This is for the night elves who are unaccustomed to living within cities. A day of mourning is set aside for the high elves, remembering Dalaran's destruction. The ale pours free for every dwarf in the city during the holy birthday of Anvil's Stormglaive. It also holds celebrations for the Third War veterans to honour the citizens of all Alliance races who fought in the war. Stormwind's climate is warm, the skies clear, and the seasons generally temperate. Thus, clothes in the city are composed of light fabric for the most part. Colour choices usually are bold: whites, reds, blues, oranges, and yellows. Although one might assume the climate would call for as little clothing as possible, the inhabitants of Stormwind prefer light fabric, but lots of it. Humans usually wear long-sleeved tunics, billowy trousers, leather boots, and sometimes even ridiculously large floppy hats for excessively sunny days. The High Elves generally copy the humans' fashions here, though there are some High Elves who prefer to set themselves apart. Although Stormwind is well defended, the city guard usually wears only light armour to handle the occasional thief or bandit. The paladins will don their full plate during ceremonies and when they ride out of the city on business defending Elwyn Forest or the surrounding areas, but around the city they wear nothing more than the breastplate that identifies them as paladins. A third force in the city is dedicated to maintaining the peace. In addition, a guild of assassins works behind the scenes with the blessings of the king and the Stormwind Ruling Council. When solving an inconvenient problem would go against the tenets of the Holy Light, the Stormwind Assassins are called. They deal with matters quickly and efficiently, and few questions are asked. The city's nobility strive for power while manipulating others and shrouding their sins in secrecy. A few exceptional nobles, however, do try to tend to the city the best they can. The priests, meanwhile, uphold the tenets of the Holy Light, although some have become more political than religious. The guard is generally uncorrupted and has a close relationship to the carefree citizens of Stormwind. Opposition to the Horde, Scourge, Burning Legion, and the Shadow are near requirements to live in the city. Anyone who speaks out in support of these groups, or even suggests speaking out in support of them, is likely to be hanged or driven out, for these beliefs are enforced like law by the will of the common man. Most citizens of the city are practitioners of the Holy Light, and nearly all at least respect it. The religion is tied closely to the government, for the Church has enough political influence to directly impact the actions the king decides to take. Those criminals who survive arrest and trial reside in one of the city's 2 prisons. Common criminals, from pickpockets to murderers, stay in the stockade. More dangerous types, demons, rogue mages, and the like, are left to rot in the vault, which is surrounded on all sides by water. The city is made up of roughly rectangular districts separated by canals. The Valley of Heroes, an area beyond the city gate. Class trainers there are none, profession trainers are none. There used to be a shaman class trainer there, but as we all know at this stage, at least anybody who plays the game knows at this stage, class trainers pretty much don't exist. You might see the NPCs calling themselves class trainers, but they teach you nothing. And I miss the days of being taught stuff by them. It made a lot of sense. Stormwind is the largest of the surviving human kingdoms remaining on Azeroth. Connected through both sea access and the newly built underground railroad, Stormwind proudly swings its doors open wide for adventurers of the entire Alliance. Humans, dwarves, gnomes, high elves, worgen, pandaren, and night elves all have their own little niche in the capital city, making Stormwind a true melting pot of cultures. Stormwind City's great gates tower over the treetops of Elwyn Forest. Beyond them lies the Valley of Heroes, a beautiful natural basin spanned by a majestic bridge leading to the city's trade district. The bridge is lined with enormous statues depicting some of the greatest heroes of the Second War, the brave men, high elves, and dwarves who stepped into the dark portal to bring an end to the war in the scarred land of Draenor itself. These brave fighters are all the more legendary due to their inconclusive fate. Did they perish behind the portal, or do they still live in the shattered lands beyond? Many who see the monuments lament the loss of these great heroes and wonder if Azeroth will ever be graced by bravery as steadfast as theirs. When Deathwing made his return to the world, he made a short stop at Stormwind's Valley of Heroes. The towers at the entry to the great city still bear the molten marks of his claws, and the statue of Dana Trollbane was sheared from its pedestal. Workers argue even now about the best possible way to repair the damage. The trade district lies in the centre of Stormwind City and is always bustling with activity. The city's bank, auction house, griffin master, and inn are all located within. In addition, consumers find plenty of outlets for their coin in the various equipment shops nearby, such as repair shops which also sell armour. For those with a taste for the delectable, the Trias and Galena families run cheese and wine shops out of the trade district as well. To the east of the trade district is Old Town, the resurrected remains of the small village that was once clustered around the base of Stormwind Keep back in the days before the First War. Though quaint, this district is a bit more rough around the edges. Pickpockets, beggars, and the impoverished try to make a living in its alleys. Though all businesses are honest, their inventories can be a bit exotic. Poisons, venoms, assassins' daggers, and potent alcohol are all on the menu in Old Town. Fortunately, the Stormwind Guard barracks are located along the edges of Old Town, so those travelling through have little reason to worry. However, the barracks share their edifice with SI7, a guild of assassins and rogues. Whether the Stormwind Guards enjoy the presence of their neighbours is difficult to figure out. After the Cataclysm, this district was transformed into a version of its former self. The Command Centre and SI7 buildings, now located in a small but lush area of their own. Riding stables have even been added, much to the joy of those just learning their riding, for they no longer need to make the long trek to the East Vale logging camp. Training dummies can also be found just outside the entry to SI7 for those who want to hone their skills, whether they use spell or sword. To the west of the trade district is the Mage Quarter. Though Stormwind had a handful of able mages among its ranks during the Second War, the arrival of the dispossessed wizards of Dalaran signalled Stormwind's importance as the world's new centre of magical study. The Academy of Arcane Arts and Sciences stands proudly in the centre of the district, and the tower is so packed with students that it is often on fire, encased in ice, or half hidden behind a curtain of sparkling arcane energy. The rest of the district is filled with tailoring shops, warehouses storing magical artifacts and reagents, and bustling coffee houses and bars filled to the brim with mages and warlocks. During the First War, Stormwind utilised the services of the mysterious conjurers, but they no longer have any presence in the city. Since the Cataclysm, efforts have been made to increase navigability, new paths wending their way through the district rather than only around the outskirts of it. Deathwing not only scarred the Valley of Heroes, he also irrevocably scarred Stormwind by utterly destroying the park. Where once it stood was only a deep chasm that plunged into the sea. Even the Moonwell was no more. A number of people lost their lives with this callous display of power, though some of the Night Elves managed to escape. They are now considering a return to their homeland of Darnassus, rather than staying in the city. North of the Mage Quarter is what remains of the park, now rebuilt as Lion's Rest. Though there was once a time when this area was merely a park, it used to serve as the home for the biggest concentration of Night Elves in the Eastern Kingdoms. Though the other Alliance races have a long way to go before understanding the strange ways of the Night Elves, it was not a rare sight to see them all mingling in Stormwind's park. At its centre, the park contained a moonwell, one of only a handful in the Eastern Kingdoms. Strangely, this moonwell did not visibly glow like those found in other locations, although it still possessed sufficient power to purify Felcloth. The area formerly known as the park has been rebuilt and retitled as Lion's Rest, as mentioned. Features include a fountain, stone pathways, memorial monuments to Varian Rin and the other souls who gave their lives at the battle for the Broken Shore. To the north of the trade district is Cathedral Square, the religious mecca for all followers of the Holy Light. Though Stormwind Keep is the biggest structure in Stormwind City, many believe the most awe-inspiring is the Cathedral of Light. Even the druidic Night Elves are filled with wonder when they look upon its tall white towers and imposing architecture. Within the cathedral are the most faithful and true paladins and priests of the human race. The bishops of the cathedral are on a lifelong quest to bring the light to the darkest places on Azeroth, and all are welcome within the cathedral's walls as long as their journey is one of good and not evil. Other notable locations in the square include the city's orphanage, inhabited by many sons and daughters of families who lost their lives during the Three Wars, and the city census, where Stormwind's architects and researchers try to find ways to improve the quality of life in the human city. Despite the destruction of the park and damage suffered to the Valley of Heroes, great work has been done to the square. A large cemetery has been added behind the cathedral, housing the most important of the dead down to the most common citizen. In addition, there's a new garden, complete with a gazebo, perfect for sunny, warm wedding days. A new danger lurks beneath the cathedral in the catacombs, and able heroes plunge into the depths on their way to pursuing the Twilight's Hammer clan into the Twilight Highlands. To the east of Cathedral Square is the Dwarven District, where the dwarves and gnomes of Ironforge carve a slice of Stormwind life out for themselves. The air is thick with smoke and sparks, and the ground trembles with the pounding of anvils, but to many it feels just like a home should. A trove of weapon and armour shops line the streets, and blacksmiths create masterpieces out of common metals in the many open-air plazas. Many adventurers pass through the Dwarven District on their way to the Deep Run tram, a marvel of gnomish engineering and fast transport to the city of Ironforge. The massive spinning cog that frames the entrance to the tram tunnel cannot be missed. Since the Cataclysm, the Dwarven District has been expanded to include a bank and auction house. The northern wall has been removed to allow access to the Stormwind City outskirts, which include areas such as Olivia's Pond, the Wullerton Stead, and the Eastern Earth Shrine. Each district is bordered by shimmering blue canals and linked by bridges spanning over them. Anglers fish from the many docks in the city, the freshwater fish within perfect quarry for the beginning fishermen. There are two fortifications that rise from the waters in Stormwind. Both are prisons for the lawless and evil. The stockade is accessible from the Mage Quarter and holds murderers, thieves, and corrupted stonemasons. Recently, riots have begun to break out within the stockade, the most recent of which resulted in the hasty evacuation of all the Stormwind guards within. The city now actively seeks adventurers to enter the prison and end the riots. A similar prison, the Vault, is surrounded by water on all sides and seems to be holding out fine for now. It is unknown if the demons, mages, and undead within will one day rise up as well. The harbour is located in the most northern area bordering the Great Sea, with the access points set between the park and Cathedral Square. Stormwind City towers over the harbour, with cannons stationed all along the walls. A major transportation hub, the docks are teeming with all sorts of activity. Both of the most outer docks are currently in use, connecting to Valiant's Keep in the Borean Tundra and replacing the Menethil Harbour to Aberdeen line, connecting the Eastern Kingdoms to Northern Kalimdor. Siege engines are also dotted throughout the area, and at the northern tip one can find a large shipyard. If you are friendly enough, Thargold Ironwing will grant you a free aerial tour through the entire region. The Assurance can be found permanently docked here as well, offering repair, reagents, food and drink. Finally, the crown of Stormwind City remains the Stormwind Keep, rising high between the Dwarven District and Old Town. The keep is an architectural triumph for the ages. Within are many librarians, nobles, and representatives of the human peoples, as well as the battle masters who organise adventurers of the Alliance into armies ready to march on the battlegrounds. It is home to King Anduin Wrynn. Thank you for watching, and as always, remember, play to game and game to play.